Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here on the Retail Corner. I am here with Ranu. She is the head of marketing for PatPat, which is an amazing company. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Can you kind of walk us through like kind of your journey that brought you to PatPat, and maybe give a little introduction to them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been, kind of working in the retail and fashion space for a while now, about 15 plus years. I've kind of been in companies like B2C, B2B retail from Sephora, Azazie, which is a pretty large bridal retailer. And yeah, now I'm the head of marketing at PatPat. And really, we're basically a very kind of baby, kids, and family fashion
Okay.
company. I would say, really, what makes PatPat special is the family matching apparel, and that's really what kind of differentiates the brand from its competitors.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So, like I said, I was unaware of the brand before this podcast, which probably shouldn't admit. But at the same time, that's probably a huge problem for you guys is brand awareness and making sure that kind of cutting through all the noise. And so, how have you found to be effective, to cut through all the noise and actually drive that brand awareness?
Yeah, I think there's been kind of a mix of strategies for us that have been pretty effective with brand awareness. For one, which I think a lot of brands kind of follow, is influencer marketing. For us,
Okay.
especially with micro influencers, they've really been like a big win for us. I think these influencers in general, they have smaller but like highly engaged audiences, and we've had a
Yeah.
lot of success, yeah, working especially with like the mom influencers.
Okay.
I think in general, like it feels more personal, and their followers really kind of trust their recommendations, which has really helped us build that kind of same trust with our audience. And also, like, PR has been pretty key for us, just helping kind of raise visibility through, media features and different collaborations. We really try to be like an authority when it comes to family apparel. So actually
Oh, of course.
recently we started sending out a quarterly report to the media on like the trends and the insights that we're seeing in the industry. And we poll like thousands of our customers to really get these insights. So that's been great just in terms of like customer engagement, because I feel like our
That's
customers feel like a kind of extension of our brand.
Okay, so I have a couple questions about that because
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by this. One, yeah, everybody has a different definition of micro influencer. Are we talking a few hundred, a few thousand? What are we? How do you find those micro influencers?
Yeah. I would say for me, it's anywhere from like, I would say like 1,000 to about 10,000 is
Okay.
what at least we consider like a micro. A lot of times how we find them is we don't really use like a lot of sophisticated tools for that. Most of the time, like our team is on Instagram and they'll see one they like and they can kind of connect to several others based on that
Oh,
one kind of profile. So a lot of
well,
it
it's
is
super
honestly
organic. It's not
scrolling
just
and
some list.
searching.
Yeah, it's super
Yeah.
organic. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and then secondly, you guys are a privately held company, but you're sending out a quarterly report and but it's driving the industry. Sounds like it's kind of like you're seeing trends, you're seeing things, and that's useful information. And I mean, if I was anywhere in the industry, I would want to know about the data that you're collecting. Of course, I'm kind of a data junkie myself, but yeah. So when you're polling your customers and everything else like that, is that part of the is that part of like a loyalty program or anything that you guys are part of, or
No, so we actually it's interesting. So how we're pulling most of them is just through social media. We will put like a lot of polls up around things like, what's the most important to you when it comes to the product? Is it the quality? Is it the price? And we can just get very fast, immediate responses that way.
yeah.
And I just feel like at least our customer base is pretty active on social. So there's just so much data we can pull in real time and kind of gather it all together, and just the response rate is so much higher than say trying to send like an email survey. We don't get the same level of interest. I think it's just so easy for people to just push like a button on their phone versus,
Sure.
yeah, responding to an email. So that's been the most effective for us in terms of just gathering the data.
Okay. Well, because you guys are direct to consumer, right? I mean, you guys are kings of that space, and so when you're especially direct to consumer families, you're trying to appeal across the board to moms, to kids, to everything. Like, is there any sort of challenges that you've encountered being direct to consumer like that?
Yeah, I would say a few.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, you make a great point. So I think that's the most challenging part is that for a lot of other businesses, I think the audience is a little bit more specific, but for us, it's just there's so many different segments that we're trying to cater to, like you said. So it's like the parents
yeah.
and the kids, and it's also the grandparents, a lot of extended family members that we're also sort of trying to cater to.
Okay.
So I think just in general, like catering to all those people, but also making sure our messaging and our products are really resonating with all of them. Like just in general, like families, they're so different and they're so kind of diverse that we're always trying to balance what's important to them when it comes to like affordability is really key, I would say, in our industry.
Sure.
And also like practicality because it's kids' clothes. But then, everybody kind of want something different. Like parents want high quality, they want durable, but then yet at the same time, they want it to be really trendy. So
Mhm.
it's just finding that balance, I think, between all of that and also just really standing out because it's such a competitive space and there's so many
A lot of
players
inter-
in
a lot
it.
of a lot of things have to intersect for it to be right. Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
like, you have a wonderful fashion mindset and everything else like that, but you kind of have a tech background as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so, uh, how are you leveraging that? Because we're talking about a lot of data points when it comes to tech. Like, how do you leverage like your tech background and like really consuming all that information, making those intersections?
Yeah, I think like obviously I feel like tech has been a bit of a game changer, especially mainly for us when it comes to like the data driven merchandising. So like when we're analyzing our customer data, we can really better understand like what products are resonating, what's driving sales and kind of how to optimize those offerings. But I feel like it's really about using the data to make smarter decisions and deliver
Okay.
more about what our customers want. I think that's been determining a lot of like our product development lately. And then we're also just using, I think everybody is using a lot of AI,
It's
especially,
it's
especially
2024. We're all using it. Yeah.
we're all using it. But we've been using it a lot with influencer marketing, which I kind of talked about before, but it's been helping us, I would say, just overall when it comes to like analyzing engagement, audience demographics, so we can really better align the right people for the
Yeah.
brand.
And so, like, uh, when you're pulling those brands together and everything else like that, especially with as much data as you're collecting, there's always a bias. At least I feel like I always have a bias going in when looking at the data. Was there
Yeah,
something that you approached the data thinking it was, oh, well, I'm 100% right about this, but then the data told you differently?
absolutely. I
What was that?
think I think for one, we thought that there was kind of like a everyone fits all when it comes to our product, but we're global and we're selling, to a lot of different countries. But when we were looking at the data, we started to look at it more like by region to understand the difference in the product. In general, like US consumers, for example, really like products that are a little bit more, I would say, like minimalist and a little more simple versus like some of our customers in like Latin America, like a lot of like the brighter colors. But we were putting the same type of like US based product on all of our different sites and realized that that was like a big mistake. And then as we started seeing the different trends like per country, our entire like merchandise flow basically changed.
That's that's a big deal. I mean, that's realizing who you're talking to is kind of huge. Now,
Yeah.
when you're dealing with different cultures, different countries, different regions of the world, you actually, I was kind of looking through their website a little bit, and you guys have all sorts of licensing, all sorts of partnerships, and everything else like
Yeah.
that. And so, are you seeing those being consumed worldwide, like a successful licensing being consumed worldwide?
Yeah, I mean, for some of them, we only have the rights to certain countries, but I feel like the ones where it's a little bit more global, for sure. I think like we partner with a lot of brands that are, like heritage brands like Disney, and then
Sure.
maybe some newer ones like a Paw Patrol. But I feel like in general, they've kind of naturally aligned with us as a brand, because they're very, like, affordable. It's all about quality family fashion. Kids and parents trust it already because they're such, reputable kind of
Sure.
brands for us to be partnering with. So yeah, no, I think that's been really good.
So is there a secret to those strategic partnerships? Is there a secret to, like, how making sure that you're successful, making sure that both sides are happy?
I mean, I feel like successful collabs like that are all kind of about finding the right match between the brands. Like you need to understand both audiences and make sure like the partnership feels real and authentic. I think a lot of times people can tell if it feels really forced. But like overall, I would say like good communication between the brands, like setting very clear expectations and goals from the beginning, and really making sure that both brands are benefiting are really, the key ingredients before you should even
Yeah.
start and sign that deal.
Of course, I mean, licensing is, I mean, there are some licensing agreements that I used to work for a different company called Hastings Entertainment a long time ago, and we licensed all sorts of things. And some of those have a shelf life of mere weeks. Some of them are like I said, legacy, amazing brands and everything else like that.
Yeah.
But you've got to stay current. You got to stay on the edge of what people are kind of wanting and everything else like that. And looked around a little bit, and you were in Sephora for a good amount of time, and you kind of rolled out their studio concept, right?
Yes.
Did you take any lessons from that rollout into what you're doing right now?
Um, yeah, I would say I did. I feel like that, like working on that whole concept kind of taught me how important it is for one to be very organized, but also really like agile. Sephora is a very kind of fast moving environment, even though it's such a large company. Um, I think like one of the things is I had to work with so many cross-functional teams, like marketing to merchandising to education to like their digital, and really making sure that, everything was staying on track. I think overall that kind of helped me, like even at PatPat now, because it's so important for all of the teams to be like collaborating and working together. I think every department has its own like important piece of the puzzle, even when it comes to like a campaign. Um,
Yeah,
so I
absolutely.
think in that way that really kind of helped me understand like the bigger picture, because a lot of times I just look at things from a marketing angle, but working on that rollout kind of really helped me understand how all of like the different teams need to be working collaboratively together to like execute these larger projects.
Well, yeah, because I mean, marketing's, you can either see it as a hub where you've got logistics over here, you've got purchasing over here, you've got everything. Everything has to communicate with marketing, and if you're missing a piece of that puzzle, like you were talking about, it doesn't. It can't be as effective, And so you've got to have influence or at least trackability of some sort in every different section of your universe. And so, is there a this is a personal question, I guess. Is there a secret to your organization? Is it a day timer? Do you use Google calendars? Like, how do you keep it all straight?
Um,
What's your secret sauce?
I personally, I love like project management software tools. I've used so many of them. I have my favorites, but without them, I wouldn't be able to stay organized at all. Like I
We're
love
we're we're an unbranded we're
Asana.
an unbranded podcast. What's your favorite?
I love Asana. Asana
Okay.
is my everything. I love it. It keeps me like even personally, besides like the like working cross functionally with everybody on Asana, I love it just to keep myself organized and on track.
That makes sense. I'm always looking for the next thing. I'm like, I was the kid and I was the kid that had a day timer when I was like younger, and yeah, I've grown up into everything, and yeah, it's I'm always
Love
looking to something to keep my brain a little bit more focused, and so yeah, I'll have to check it out. But and so we've talked about technology a little bit. We've talked about kind of the trends of the universe, and so what are you looking? What do you foresee shaping retail? Like as an industry, maybe not just fashion, but other than AI. We'll put that.
Um, I still feel like sustainability is a big one. Especially just with like the younger consumers. I think that they're paying like very close attention to like the environmental impact of their purchases. I know we've been making shifts as a company just based on that in terms of like expanding, like using more
Yeah,
sustainable
that's
fabrics.
huge right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're looking into like bamboo fabrics. There's a lot of things that we're
Oh
kind of
wow.
trying to do on that front. And then, we're still, I think the other thing that is still very important, and I don't think you hear about it still as much, is just like having more inclusivity, especially when it comes to like fashion and retail. I think people want to see themselves reflected in the brands that they're supporting and buying from. And shockingly, I don't feel like you still see a lot of inclusivity when it comes to just like having like a range of sizes, like diverse
Sure.
models, products that suit like different family dynamics. I still think that's also
And
going to be
that's
important.
super important, like especially in the direct to consumer, because you're literally it's you have a customer of one. You are
Right.
not a store that has 100 people in it. It is a store
Right.
of one customer. And it's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of stores of one customer, but it is a personal experience for that direct to consumer. And so seeing that they're taken care of and everything else like that is increasingly more important, especially in that
Yes.
space. But okay,
Absolutely.
so we're bumping up against our time limit here, but I wanted to make sure to get your advice on one thing. And so if you could
Okay.
go back to the very beginning of your career
Okay.
and talk to her, what would you tell her?
Uh, that is a good question. Um, I feel like the piece of advice I would give is to stay grounded in reality. I think in general, there's a big misconception that the fashion industry is very glamorous and you're always like rubbing shoulders with, influencers and living this picture perfect life. But I think the truth is there's so much hard work that goes on behind the scenes. And, like especially when I started, like I would tell myself the entry level jobs, they involve things that are not very glamorous at all. And I think it's just important to go in with like very realistic expectations and a really strong work ethic. If you're willing to roll up your sleeves and just learn, I feel like this is the best industry to be in.
Oof. I think that's perfect advice. I wish I would have heard that when I was
Me
it's
too.
just starting out. But so I cannot thank you enough for joining us. If it's okay with you, we can touch base in a couple months and kind of see how your projects are going and
Yeah,
see what's up. Rhonda, I cannot thank you enough. I
that
appreciate
sounds great. Thank you.
If you would like to be featured on our podcast, please email us at podcast@retailcorner.live or visit our website, retailcorner.live. Looking forward to having you as our guest on our podcast, and thank you so much for listening.